Years after the events in the Norse realms, a new generation of warriors seeking to emulate Kratos' legendary power uncovers a horrifying truth about the Ghost of Sparta's past, a secret blood ritual that threatens to unleash a new era of chaos upon the world. The name Kratos was whispered in hushed tones throughout the Nine Realms. He was a legend, a myth, a god-killer. The Ghost of Sparta, who had brought down the pantheon of Olympus and found a fragile peace in the cold north, was now a figure of both awe and fear. I was a young warrior, eager to make my mark on the world. My village, nestled in the shadow of the mountains, lived under the constant threat of Draugr and other creatures that roamed the wild. We trained relentlessly, honing our skills, hoping to one day achieve a fraction of the power wielded by the legendary Kratos. We had heard the stories, of course, tales of his god-killing rampage through Greece, his brutal efficiency, and the boundless rage that fueled his every action. We knew of his time in Midgard, his journey with Atreus, and his newfound restraint, but there were other stories too, darker stories. These stories spoke of a hidden chapter in Kratos' life, a period of time shrouded in secrecy, a time before he found peace, before he became a father again, a time when his rage was at its peak, when his thirst for vengeance knew no bounds. These whispers spoke of a ritual, a blood ritual, that Kratos performed to enhance his power, a ritual that bound him to something ancient and malevolent, something that still lurked within him, waiting to be awakened. Our village was attacked, not by Draugr, not by beasts, but by a new breed of warrior. They wore strange armor, adorned with symbols we didn't recognize. They fought with a ferocity that mirrored Kratos' own, their movements precise, their attacks brutal and efficient. They wielded weapons that seemed to hum with a dark energy. They slaughtered our people, their leader, a towering figure cloaked in black, proclaiming that they were the blades of Ares, come to reclaim the power of the Ghost of Sparta. He claimed they had found a way to tap into the source of Kratos' strength, the same source he used in his bloodiest days, the source he tried to bury. Our village was decimated. I was one of the few survivors, left with nothing but a burning desire for revenge and a desperate need to understand what had happened. I remembered the stories of the hidden cave, the whispers of the blood ritual, and I knew I had to find it. If these blades of Ares had truly found a way to harness Kratos' old power, the world was in grave danger. Following the fragmented clues from the old tales, I embarked on a perilous journey, a journey that took me through treacherous landscapes and into the forgotten corners of the Nine Realms. Along the way, I encountered others who had been affected by the blades of Ares, survivors who had witnessed their terrifying power firsthand. They spoke of warriors who moved like shadows, who wielded weapons that seemed to drink the very life force of their victims, who fought with a rage that mirrored the Ghost of Sparta's own, but twisted, amplified, devoid of any restraint. It was becoming clear that the blades of Ares weren't just emulating Kratos. They were tapping into something far more sinister. After months of searching, I finally found it, the place where Kratos performed the ritual. It wasn't a cave, as the stories said, but a hidden temple buried deep beneath the earth, accessible only through a forgotten, overgrown path. The temple was ancient, built from black stone that seemed to absorb all light. The air within was thick with the stench of blood and decay, a chilling testament to the horrors that had taken place within its walls. The walls were covered in murals, depicting scenes of unimaginable violence. Warriors bathed in blood, their faces contorted in rage. Titans, their bodies riddled with wounds, their eyes filled with terror. And in the center of it all, a figure that I recognized instantly, Kratos. But this was not the Kratos I knew from the stories of his time with Atreus. This was a younger Kratos, his body covered in the ashes of his enemies, his eyes burning with a cold, white fury. He stood before an altar, a massive slab of black stone stained with what I could only assume was dried blood. As I studied the murals, I began to understand the truth about the ritual. It wasn't just about enhancing power, it was about sacrificing control, about surrendering to the darkness, about becoming a vessel for pure, unadulterated rage. The ritual bound Kratos not to a god, but to the very essence of war itself. And that essence lived on, slumbering, waiting for a spark. In the center of the temple, I found the altar. It was covered in the same strange symbols I had seen on the armor of the blades of Ares. And in the center of the altar, a single obsidian dagger, its blade pulsing with a faint red light. It was the key, the conduit to the power that Kratos had once wielded, the power that the blades of Ares now sought to control. As I reached for the dagger, the ground trembled. The temple walls began to crack, and a chorus of whispers filled the air. The blades of Ares had found me. They poured into the chamber, their leader, the cloaked figure from my village, at the forefront. He was even more imposing in person, his eyes burning with the same red light that emanated from the obsidian dagger. He was no mere mortal, but a being enhanced by the stolen power of the ritual. "You cannot stop us," he hissed, his voice a distorted echo of Kratos' own. "We will awaken the true power of the Ghost of Sparta. We will bring about a new age of war, an age of eternal conflict." He lunged at me, his movements impossibly fast, his strength inhuman. I barely managed to dodge his attack, the obsidian dagger whistling past my ear. The other blades of Ares joined the fray, their corrupted weapons clashing against my own. I was outnumbered, outmatched, but I couldn't give up. I had to protect the dagger, to prevent them from unleashing the full power of the ritual. The battle raged. I fought with a desperation born of fear and a flicker of hope, drawing strength from the memory of my fallen village. But the blades of Ares were relentless, their movements mirroring the brutal efficiency of Kratos himself, but amplified, twisted into something far more monstrous. As I fought, I realized that the ritual had not just enhanced their physical abilities. It had connected them to Kratos' rage, to the darkness that he had tried so hard to bury. They were not just warriors. They were extensions of the very thing he had fought to overcome. Just when I thought I was about to fall, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, muscular, his skin marked with faded red tattoos. Kratos. He moved with a speed I could barely follow, his blades of chaos a whirlwind of fire and death. He tore through the blades of Ares, his rage a palpable force that filled the chamber. But it was a different rage now, a controlled fury, tempered by years of hard-won peace. He was not the same man who had performed the ritual. He was something more. He had faced his demons, confronted his past, and emerged stronger, wiser. He had moved past his blind rage, but it was clear he knew how to tap into that power when absolutely necessary. He had to protect his past from being used to corrupt the present. But even Kratos was struggling. The leader of the Blades of Ares, empowered by the stolen essence of the ritual, was a formidable opponent. He wielded the obsidian dagger, its power amplified by his own corrupted will. The battle reached its climax. Kratos and the leader clashed, their weapons meeting in a shower of sparks. The chamber echoed with the sounds of their struggle, the clash of steel, the roar of rage. Then, in a moment of desperation, the leader plunged the obsidian dagger into the altar, attempting to fully awaken the ancient power, to unleash the full force of the iron within upon the world. But Kratos, with a roar that shook the very foundations of the temple, intervened. He grabbed the leader's arm, his grip like iron, and with a sickening crack, he broke the connection, snapping the leader's arm and casting the dagger aside. The chamber fell silent. The red glow faded from the altar, from the dagger, from the eyes of the blades of Ares. They collapsed, their bodies reverting to their human forms, their minds freed from the grip of the corrupted power. They had been used, just as Kratos had all those years ago. Kratos stood over the fallen leader, his chest heaving, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage and sorrow. He looked down at his own hands, at the blades of chaos still dripping with the corrupted energy of his past, then back at me. He said nothing. He didn't have to. His silence spoke volumes. He then turned and walked towards the ancient tree at the back of the temple, his form disappearing into the shadows, leaving me alone with the aftermath of a battle that had averted a global catastrophe, a battle that had revealed the true cost of his legendary power. The world never learned of the events that transpired within the lion's maw. The blades of Ares were never heard from again. Life in the 9 realms seemingly returned to normal, but I knew the truth. I knew that the darkness still lurked beneath the surface, that the cycle of violence, once set in motion, was not so easily broken. The power that Kratos had once wielded, the power he had tried to bury, was still out there, waiting for someone else to awaken it. The power was too great for one man to control, and sometimes, when the wind howls through the mountains, I can still hear the whispers, the echoes of the first Titan. A chilling reminder that even the greatest heroes can cast the longest shadows. And sometimes I see him in my dreams. Not the monster I had seen in the cave, but the young man, Cole, his eyes filled with a desperate hope that would one day turn to ashes. A stark reminder of how good intentions can pave the way to even the darkest of destinations. The legend of Kratos was known throughout the realms, but the truth of his origin remained buried, a silent testament to the darkness that lies within us all, waiting for its chance to rise again. And should it rise again, who could possibly stand against such a foe? The answer was as unclear as the path forward, into a future forever stained by the first Titan's legacy.